Imagine it's 6 o'clock in the evening. You look up from your screen and your eyes are burning, your back aches. You've been in motion all day, answering emails, taking calls, sitting in meetings, putting out small fires. And yet when you try to recall what you actually accomplished, the list feels embarrassingly thin. You were busy, extremely busy, but were you productive? Did you move the needle on anything that truly matters? Or did you simply spend the day spinning in a hamster wheel of urgency, mistaking movement for progress, and ending up exhausted without anything to show for it? That quiet, sinking feeling is one of the most common experiences in the modern world. And it's exactly the problem that Kevin Kruse set out to solve. Kruse is not a philosopher or a self-help guru in the traditional sense. He's an entrepreneur, a researcher, and a relentlessly practical thinker who became fascinated by a simple question. What do the most successful people on the planet do differently with their time? He didn't want theories. He wanted the actual observable practices that billionaires, Olympic athletes, straight-A students, and CEOs used to pack an extraordinary amount of effectiveness into the same 24 hours that the rest of us fritter away. So he interviewed them. Over 200 ultra-successful people, including billionaires like Richard Branson, top entrepreneurs, and peak performers. Then he distilled their collective wisdom into a set of 15 concrete, actionable secrets. The book that emerged from that research is called 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management, and it is not a dense, academic tome. It's a lean, no-nonsense playbook. Kruse's central premise is that time is your most precious, non-renewable resource. You can always make more money, but you can never make more time. And the difference between those who merely dream and those who achieve is not intelligence, not luck, not even hard work in the traditional sense. It's how they relate to the 1,440 minutes they are given each day. Most of us have been taught some version of time management that is fundamentally broken. We write endless to-do lists that grow faster than we can tick items off. We confuse activity with achievement. We let other people's agendas dictate our calendars. We treat time as something elastic, something we can stretch, rather than as a fixed, precious container that must be guarded with fierce intention. The ultra-successful know something different. They treat time like a billionaire treats capital. They invest it, they protect it, and they refuse to squander it on low-return activities. Over the next hour, we're going to walk through the 15 secrets Kruse uncovered, not as a dry list of tips, but as an integrated system for taking back control of your life. You'll learn why a simple notebook can be more powerful than any to-do list app ever designed. You'll discover the one question that can dramatically alter your daily productivity. You'll understand how to structure your day so that your most important work actually gets done, and you'll learn the art of saying no without guilt, because every yes to something trivial is a no to something that matters. By the end, you'll have a practical toolkit you can begin using tomorrow morning, but more importantly, you'll have a new relationship with time itself. The clock will stop being your enemy and start being your most loyal ally. The first and most foundational secret is what Kruse calls simply the 1440 principle. There are exactly 1,440 minutes in every day. No more, no less. Bill Gates has 1,440 minutes. So does a single mother working 2 jobs. So do you. The difference is not in the amount of time available, but in the fierce awareness of its value. Kruse tells the story of a billionaire who keeps a literal countdown clock in his office, ticking down from 1,440 to 0 each day. It's not a gimmick. It's a constant reminder that time is finite, that minutes are like currency you can never earn back. Once that minute is spent, it's gone forever. The ultra-successful don't just understand this intellectually, they feel it viscerally, and that feeling shapes every decision they make about their time. This secret is about reframing your relationship with time. Most of us operate as if time were an abundant, renewable resource. We say yes to things we don't want to do because we assume we'll have more time later. We linger on social media, in unproductive meetings, on tasks that could be delegated, because we haven't fully internalized the cost of those minutes. Cruz's first secret is simply to internalize the 1440 principle, to recognize that every minute is an investment, and you are the portfolio manager. The moment you start measuring your day in minutes rather than in hours or in vague blocks, your decision-making sharpens. In a student's life, the 1440 principle transforms study habits. Instead of thinking, "I'll study for a few hours tonight," the student who values 1,440 minutes says, "I have 120 minutes between dinner and sleep. What's the highest value use of those 120 minutes?" That clarity eliminates the dawdling, the phone checking, the half-focused reading. An employee who internalizes 1,440 stops treating meetings as free. She asks, "Is this 60-minute meeting worth 60 minutes of my life?" If the answer is no, she declines or shortens it. A business owner who runs on 1,440 constantly audits where her minutes are going, cutting out activities that don't generate value, because she knows that every minute spent on low-impact work is a minute stolen from strategy, from family, from rest. An investor who respects 1,440 doesn't obsessively check stock prices because that's a low-return use of precious minutes. What can you do tomorrow morning? Put a sticky note on your monitor or your bathroom mirror that says 1440. When you wake up, remind yourself, you have just been given a fresh deposit of 1,440 minutes. At the end of the day, do a rough audit. Where did the bulk of those minutes go? Were they invested or merely spent? The point is not to become obsessively rigid, but to become conscious. A common mistake is to interpret the 1440 principle as a call to fill every minute with productivity, to become a joyless efficiency machine. That's not the point. Leisure, rest, and unstructured time are valuable investments too. They renew your energy and creativity. The point is that even leisure should be chosen, not drifted into by default. Another mistake is to let the awareness of 1440 create anxiety rather than clarity. The goal is empowerment, not panic. The limitation is that some people genuinely have very little control over their minutes due to caregiving responsibilities, demanding jobs, or health challenges. For them, the 1440 principle becomes not about optimizing every minute, but about fiercely protecting the few discretionary minutes they do have. In the modern attention economy, the 1440 principle is under assault. Social media platforms, streaming services, and app notifications are designed to steal your minutes and monetize them. Every time you reflexively open an app, you're spending minutes on someone else's business model. Reclaiming those minutes is an act of rebellion. The key takeaway: you will never manage your time well until you feel the weight of each minute. 1440 is your daily allowance. Spend it like a billionaire, not like a lottery winner who thinks the money will never run out. But once you know your minutes are precious, the next question becomes, which minutes matter most? That's where the second secret comes in, and it's captured in the acronym MIT, your most important task. Cruz's second secret is deceptively simple. Identify your most important task for the day and do it before you do anything else. Not your 10 important tasks, your one MIT. This is the single activity that, if completed, would make the whole day feel like a success. It's the task that moves the needle on your biggest goals, the task that, more than any other, creates value in your work or your life. The ultra-successful, Cruz found, don't start their day by checking email or returning phone calls. They start by doing the hardest, most important thing, often before lunch, when their energy and willpower are at their peak. This secret draws on a deep truth of human psychology. Our willpower is a finite resource that depletes over the course of the day. Researchers call this ego depletion. In the morning, after a good night's sleep, your mental energy is like a fully charged battery. As the day wears on, every decision, every email, every small task drains that battery a little bit. By the time the afternoon rolls around, even simple tasks can feel daunting. If you spend your morning on trivia, you're using your best energy on the least important things, leaving only depleted, low-quality energy for your MIT. That's a recipe for perpetual frustration. He shares the example of a successful entrepreneur who, every evening, writes down exactly one MIT for the next day. When she arrives at her desk the following morning, she doesn't open her email. She doesn't check her phone. She goes straight to that one task and works on it for at least 90 minutes, often until it's complete. Only then does she allow the flood of communication and minor tasks to enter her world. This single practice, she claims, has multiplied her productivity more than any other tool or system. For a student, the MIT might be finishing a difficult problem set or writing the introduction to a term paper. The student who tackles that first, before social media or video games, often finishes the task in half the time it would take later, when fatigue has set in. An employee's MIT might be crafting the strategic proposal that her boss has been asking for. If she does it first thing, it gets done. If she waits until the afternoon, it might get pushed to tomorrow, and then the next day. A business owner's MIT could be making the uncomfortable phone call to a dissatisfied client or reviewing the financials. Putting it off doesn't make it easier. It just extends the stress. An investor's MIT might be doing a deep analysis of a potential acquisition. By doing it with a fresh mind, she catches details she would miss when tired. Tomorrow, before you go to bed, write down one task that will be your MIT for the next day. Put it on a sticky note and place it on your keyboard or your phone screen. When you start your day, don't do anything else until you've worked on that task for at least 30 minutes. Notice the resistance you feel. Notice how your brain wants to check email instead. That resistance is the feeling of your willpower trying to divert you to easier things. Push through it just for 30 minutes. A common mistake is picking an MIT that is too small or too easy. If your MIT takes 5 minutes, it's not truly your most important task. It's a quick win disguised as a priority. Dig deeper. Another mistake is picking an MIT that is a project, not a task. Write a book is not an MIT. Draft the introduction chapter is. And some people try to have 3 or 4 MITs, which defeats the purpose. Just one, that will make the day a win. The limitation is that some people's jobs genuinely consist of reactive, unpredictable tasks that can't be put off. An emergency room doctor, for example, or a support engineer on call. In those cases, the MIT principle applies to the in-between moments. When there's a lull, what's the most important thing to tackle before the next emergency? In the modern open-plan office or remote work Slack culture, the morning is often the most interruptible time. Colleagues ping you, meetings are scheduled, the inbox floods. Protecting the first 90 minutes for your MIT requires deliberate boundary setting, which we'll explore further in later secrets. For now, the takeaway is this: your day is defined by your morning. Win the morning and you win the day. Identify your MIT and attack it before the world attacks you. But what if that MIT seems overwhelming, something you dread? That's where the next secret, which Cruz calls "eat that frog," comes into play. There's a famous saying, often attributed to Mark Twain: if you eat a live frog first thing in the morning, you can go through the rest of the day knowing the worst is behind you. Your frog is your most dreaded task, the one you're most likely to procrastinate on, but also the one that often carries the highest payoff. Cruz's third secret is a direct extension of the MIT. Not only should you do your most important task first, but you should specifically tackle the task you're most likely to avoid. Procrastination, he argues, is not a time management problem. It's an emotional regulation problem. We avoid tasks that make us feel anxious, bored, or overwhelmed. And the cure is not to wait until we feel ready, but to do the dreaded thing immediately and let the relief energize the rest of the day. He shares the example of an Olympic athlete who told him that training on the days she least wanted to was the key to her success. The days when her body ached, when the weather was miserable, when her mind whispered excuses, those were the days that separated her from competitors who only trained when they felt good. The frog-eating principle, applied daily, compounds into excellence. A student who dreads a particular subject might spend hours on easier assignments, avoiding the hard one, and then panic study late at night. The frog-eating student does the hard subject first, and the rest of the study session feels lighter. An employee who needs to have a difficult conversation with a colleague might put it off for weeks, letting the anxiety fester. Eating the frog means walking over, requesting 5 minutes and having the conversation. The moment it's done, the mental relief is enormous, and the productivity that follows is unburdened by dread. A business owner who needs to fire a non-performing manager might delay and rationalize, costing the company months of dysfunction. Eating the frog is making the decision and executing it with compassion and speed. An investor who needs to sell a losing position might hold on out of loss aversion, watching the loss grow. The frog eater takes the loss, learns from it, and reallocates capital. Tomorrow, when you identify your MIT, ask yourself, is this task also something I'm dreading? If so, label it your frog. Commit to taking the first, smallest step on that frog within the first 15 minutes of your workday. Often, the dread is far worse than the task itself, and the act of starting collapses the resistance. A common mistake is to confuse a genuinely unimportant but unpleasant task with a frog. The frog should be both unpleasant and important. Cleaning your inbox might be unpleasant, but if it's not your most important task, it's a distraction dressed as a frog. Another mistake is to try to eat too many frogs in one day. One frog is enough. Don't set yourself up for failure by trying to do 3 dreaded things before lunch. The limitation is that some people have genuine anxiety disorders that make the frog-eating concept feel impossible. For them, the response may need to be coupled with therapeutic support. The principle is a tool, not a treatment. In a culture that offers infinite distractions at the click of a button, the ability to deliberately choose discomfort over distraction is a superpower. The frog is your gateway to a day of momentum. The takeaway: your success is determined not by how you handle the easy tasks, but by how you confront the ones that scare you. Eat the frog, and the rest of the day becomes your reward. But what is the best way to actually schedule these tasks so they get done? That's the 4th secret, and it's a paradigm shift. Ditch the to-do list and use your calendar instead. If there is one habit that Cruz found almost universally among ultra-successful people, it is that they do not rely on to-do lists. They live by their calendars. A to-do list, he explains, is a collection of intentions. A calendar is a commitment. When you put a task on a to-do list, you are telling yourself, I hope to do this at some point. And hope is not a strategy. To-do lists grow endlessly, become cluttered with items that linger for weeks or months, and create a low-grade background hum of guilt. They represent the gap between what you intend to do and what you actually do, and that gap is stressful. The ultra-successful flip the script. They take the tasks that matter, their MITs, their frogs, and other important activities, and they schedule them directly into their calendar as appointments with themselves. If it doesn't get a time slot, it doesn't get done. Cruz tells the story of a billionaire CEO who, at the start of each week, reviews his priorities and blocks out time for each one, down to the half hour. Even personal time with his children is blocked in the calendar, treated with the same sanctity as a board meeting. The message is clear. Your priorities must be visible, protected, and non-negotiable. This practice, often called time blocking or time boxing, is rooted in a psychological principle. What gets scheduled gets done. When you commit to a specific time for a task, you reduce the cognitive load of deciding when to do it. You also create a contract with yourself. If a colleague asks you for a meeting during a blocked period, you say, I'm sorry, I have a commitment at that time. You don't have to explain that the commitment is to your own work. Your calendar is the guardian of your focus. A student who replaces a vague to-do list with a blocked schedule transforms her study sessions from I'll study sometime after lunch to 1:00 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., Chapter 5 of Biology. The specificity and the commitment make all the difference. An employee who schedules 2 hours of deep work on Tuesday morning, blocks it in the shared calendar as busy, and closes her email during that time, actually completes the strategic work that would otherwise be postponed indefinitely. A business owner who blocks Friday afternoons for financial review and strategic planning, and treats that block as immovable, builds a rhythm of reflection that prevents the business from running purely on reactive adrenaline. An investor who schedules a weekly portfolio review and investment research session ensures that this critical activity happens, rather than getting crowded out by less important demands. Starting tomorrow, before you do anything else, take your MIT and block a specific chunk of time for it in your calendar. Give it a start and end time. Guard it. When the time comes, close everything else and do that task. At the end of the week, review how many of your scheduled tasks you actually completed. You'll likely be surprised at the effectiveness of this simple shift. A common mistake is to overschedule. People new to time blocking sometimes fill every minute of their day with tasks, leaving no buffer for the unexpected, no time for transitions, no space to breathe. The calendar should be a guide, not a prison. Leave gaps. Another mistake is to schedule only work tasks. Schedule your personal priorities too: exercise, date nights, reading, rest. If it matters, it deserves a block. The limitation is that some jobs genuinely require constant reactivity, making time blocking feel impossible. A senior executive in crisis management, for instance, might not be able to predict her day. But even in those environments, the principle can be applied to the times of relative calm, and the act of blocking even 1 or 2 periods of focus per week can create a significant advantage. In the era of shared digital calendars, time blocking has an added benefit. It signals to others that your time is spoken for. A well-maintained calendar is a shield against the endless encroachment of meeting requests. The takeaway: stop wishing you could get things done and start committing. Put it on the calendar and watch your productivity transform. But with a calendar full of commitments, you'll quickly face a new challenge: the sheer volume of demands that come from other people. That's where the next secret, the art of saying no, becomes essential. One of the most powerful words in any language is only 2 letters long, yet many of us go through our entire lives without learning how to say it without guilt. No. Krus's research revealed that successful people say no to almost everything. They are not rude, they are not unhelpful, but they are ruthlessly protective of their time. They understand that every yes to a new request is a no to something else, often something far more important. The person who says yes to a coffee meeting she doesn't want, a project she doesn't have bandwidth for, a favor that drains her energy, is saying no to her MIT, her family, her own renewal. Krus draws a distinction between the immediate discomfort of saying no and the prolonged resentment of saying yes when you shouldn't. The discomfort of no lasts a few seconds. The resentment of a misplaced yes can last for days, weeks, or even years. Successful people have trained themselves to tolerate that brief discomfort, knowing that it preserves the vast, precious territory of their time and energy. He offers a strategy: the yes and, or the no but technique. When asked to do something that doesn't align with your priorities, you can say, "I can't commit to that right now, but I can recommend someone else who might be able to help." Or, "That sounds like a great project, but my current commitments won't allow me to give it the attention it deserves." This reframes the no from a rejection of the person to an honoring of your existing commitments. A student who is asked to join a 3rd extracurricular club might say, "I'm already fully committed to my studies and 2 other activities, and I wouldn't be able to contribute meaningfully to this right now." An employee whose boss piles on another project can say, "I'm currently focused on delivering the Q3 report by Friday. If this new project is a higher priority, I can shift my focus, but I'll need to drop or delay something else to do it well." That's not insubordination. It's professional honesty. A business owner who is invited to speak at a conference that doesn't align with her strategic goals can politely decline, preserving her energy for the stages that do matter. An investor pitched 100 deals a month says no to 98 of them quickly, so she can focus deeply on the 2 that have true potential. Tomorrow, before you automatically say yes to the next request, pause, take 3 seconds, ask yourself, if I say yes to this, what am I saying no to? If the trade-off is too costly, practice a polite, firm no. You don't need to provide a long explanation. A simple, "Thank you for thinking of me, but I can't commit to that," is often enough. A common mistake is to over-explain. The longer your justification, the more entry points you give the other person to negotiate. Keep it brief and kind. Another mistake is to say no to everything, including opportunities that genuinely excite you or serve your growth. The goal is not isolation, it's intentionality. The limitation is that not everyone has the positional power to say no easily. A junior employee may feel she cannot refuse her boss. In such cases, the no but reframe is especially useful. I'd be happy to take this on, but here's what's currently on my plate. Which of these should I deprioritize to make room? That shifts the conversation from compliance to collaborative prioritization. In the age of FOMO, fear of missing out, and constant social invitations, the ability to say no is a competitive advantage. The people who say yes to everything end up scattered and exhausted. The people who say no to the trivial are able to say yes to the transformative. The takeaway: no is a complete sentence. Guard your time as fiercely as you guard your bank account, because in a very real sense, they are the same thing. But even when you say no well, there will still be a flood of incoming tasks that manage to find their way to you. The next secret is a simple rule for handling each of those items the moment they appear. Kevin Kruse calls this the touch it once principle, often known by the acronym OHIO. Only handle it once. The idea is that when a task, an email, a piece of paper, or any other item crosses your path, you should deal with it immediately and completely, rather than picking it up, putting it down, and returning to it repeatedly. Every time you switch between tasks, you incur a cognitive switching cost. Your brain takes time to refocus, and that refocusing time is pure waste. By handling an item once, you eliminate the mental clutter of unfinished tasks and the inefficiency of repeated re-engagement. Kruse explains that the ultra-successful don't leave emails sitting in their inbox for days, reading them on their phone, then again on their laptop, then again before finally replying. They open an email and they either reply immediately, delete it, archive it, or if it truly requires more than a couple of minutes, they schedule a time on their calendar to handle it. The key is that they make a decision on the spot and move on. The inbox is not a storage facility. It's a processing station. This secret ties back to the frog-eating concept. Often, the tasks we let pile up are not difficult. They're just small and slightly annoying, and our brain avoids them. But that avoidance creates a kind of psychic weight. Each unread email, each unfiled document, each unreturned call sits in your mind like an open tab, consuming a small but measurable amount of your mental RAM. By touching it once and closing the loop, you free up that mental capacity. For a student, the touch it once principle might apply to class handouts. Instead of stuffing a syllabus or assignment sheet into a backpack and forgetting about it, she reads it immediately, notes the key dates in her calendar, and discards or files the paper. The task is processed, not deferred. An employee who receives a request from a colleague can respond immediately, delegate it, or schedule it, rather than leaving the email marked as unread for 3 days and having the colleague follow up, doubling the communication. A business owner who gets a contract from a vendor can review and sign it in one sitting, rather than letting it sit on her desk for a week, only to have to reread it to remember the details. An investor who receives a prospectus can skim it, decide if it warrants a deeper look, and either discard or schedule the deep dive, all in one interaction. Tomorrow, commit to the touch it once principle for all emails and small tasks. When you open an email, you have 3 choices. Act on it now if it takes under 5 minutes, delete or archive it, or convert it into a calendar appointment to handle later. Do not close the email and leave it in the inbox. Notice how much lighter your mental load feels at the end of the day. A common mistake is to let touch it once trick you into interruptions. If you're in the middle of your MIT and an email arrives, you don't drop everything to process it. You batch your email processing at designated times. A secret we'll get to shortly. And when you do process, you follow Ohio. Another mistake is to force a decision on a genuinely complex issue that requires reflection. Touch it once doesn't mean make a snap judgment you'll regret. It means decide what the next action is and schedule that action. The limitation is that some tasks genuinely require input from others or multiple stages of approval. In those cases, the first touch is to forward it or initiate the approval chain, and then you track the task until completion. In the modern era of constant digital notifications, The touch-it-once principle is a defense against the tyranny of the inbox. The average office worker receives over 100 emails a day. If each email is opened, read, and then marked as unread to be dealt with later, that's potentially hours of wasted rereading time every week. The takeaway: handle it now or schedule it. Don't just mark it unread and hope it goes away. Your future self will thank you. But among all those incoming tasks, some are vastly more valuable than others. Knowing the difference is the next secret. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, states that roughly 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. Cruz found that successful people are obsessed with this principle. They don't try to do everything. They try to identify the vital few activities that drive the vast majority of their success, and they pour their energy into those activities while ruthlessly minimizing or eliminating the rest. This is not about being lazy. It's about being strategic. He gives the example of a top salesperson who analyzed her client list and realized that 20% of her clients generated 80% of her commissions. She stopped trying to please all her clients equally and began dedicating disproportionate time and attention to that top 20%, taking them to dinner, sending personalized gifts, anticipating their needs. Her overall sales increased, not decreased, because she was feeding the goose that laid the golden eggs. Conversely, she actively fired the bottom 10% of clients who took up enormous time and generated almost no revenue. That freed up even more time for the high-value relationships. The 80-20 principle applies to almost every domain. In business, 20% of products often generate 80% of profit. In health, 20% of habits, sleep, exercise, and a few dietary choices drive 80% of well-being. In learning, 20% of the concepts in a textbook often account for 80% of the exam questions. The key is not to guess, it's to measure and identify. A student can apply the 80-20 rule by looking at past exams and identifying the topics that are most heavily weighted, then allocating study time accordingly. Instead of trying to master every page of the textbook, she spends the majority of her time deeply understanding the core concepts that are likely to appear. An employee can analyze her weekly activities and ask, which tasks contribute most to my performance review, to my visibility, to the company's bottom line? Those are the tasks she should prioritize and excel at. The administrative trivia that fills the rest of the day. She should batch it, delegate it, or minimize it. A business owner can run a profit analysis on her product lines. If a few products are driving the profits, she should invest in them. If some are losing money, she should cut them, even if it means shrinking the business in the short term. An investor can apply 80-20 to portfolio risk. 20% of holdings may represent 80% of the volatility. Understanding that allows for more targeted hedging. Tomorrow, pick one area of your life, your work, your studies, your health, and do a quick 80-20 analysis. What 20% of inputs are creating 80% of the outputs? Write them down. Then, make a conscious decision to spend more time on those inputs and less on the low-impact 80%. A common mistake is to take the 80-20 rule as a rigid mathematical law. It's a principle, a heuristic. Sometimes it's 70-30 or 90-10. The point is that the distribution is almost always uneven. Another mistake is to eliminate the 80% entirely without thinking. Some low-impact activities are still necessary, filing taxes, renewing licenses, but they can often be batched, automated, or delegated. The limitation is that sometimes you can't identify the 20-80 split in advance. In creative work, for instance, it's often impossible to know which 20% of your writing or composing will turn out to be the masterpiece. In those cases, the principle is less useful for initial creation, but may be applied to editing and refining after the fact. In a world of endless opportunity, the 80-20 rule is a filter. It protects you from the trap of treating all tasks as equal. The takeaway: not all work is created equal. Find your 20% and pour your 40 minutes into that. And for the remaining 80% of tasks that still need to get done, there's another secret: batching. Batching is the practice of grouping similar, low-value tasks together and doing them in one focused burst, rather than letting them pepper your day and constantly interrupt your focus. Cruz explains that the ultra-successful don't check email continuously throughout the day. They batch email processing into 2 or 3 designated windows, say mid-morning, after lunch, and end of day. During those windows, they focus exclusively on email, applying the touch-it-once principle, and then they close the inbox and return to high-value work. The same principle applies to phone calls, expense reports, social media, and any other repetitive task. The neuroscience behind batching is clear. Every time you switch from one type of task to another, your brain incurs a switching cost. That cost can be as high as 20 to 25 minutes of lost productivity per interruption, as your brain has to reorient itself to the new context. If you check email every 15 minutes, you are essentially keeping yourself in a permanent state of semi-distraction, never fully present with any task. By batching, you consolidate the switching costs. You pay the price of context switching once, rather than a dozen times. Cruz shares the example of a CEO who processes all of his voicemails only once a day, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He doesn't answer the phone during the day unless it's a pre-scheduled call or an extreme emergency. This allows him to spend the bulk of his day on strategic thinking and high-stakes meetings. His team knows his system and adapts accordingly. A student might batch all her administrative tasks, emails to professors, assignment submissions, class registration paperwork, into a single hour on Sunday afternoon. The rest of the week, she can focus on learning without the constant buzz of logistical minutiae. An employee might batch all her internal meetings onto Tuesdays and Thursdays, leaving Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays free for deep, uninterrupted work. A business owner might batch her accounting and invoicing into one morning per week, rather than letting it dribble into every day. An investor might batch her news consumption and market analysis into a single hour each evening, avoiding the temptation to check stock prices throughout the day. Tomorrow, identify one recurring task that currently interrupts you multiple times a day: email, social media, or administrative tasks. Decide on 2 or 3 specific times tomorrow when you will handle that task exclusively, and close it down completely at all other times. Use a timer if needed. Notice how your focus improves. A common mistake is to batch too much, creating a batching block that is so long it becomes exhausting or leads to procrastination. The batch block should be long enough to handle the task, but not so long that it feels like a punishment. Another mistake is to batch tasks that are genuinely urgent and time-sensitive, like responding to a client emergency. Batching is for tasks that can wait. The limitation is that some roles, customer support, executive assistance, require a degree of real-time responsiveness that makes batching difficult. Even in those roles, certain tasks can still be batched, and the expectation of constant immediate response can often be managed through communication and setting clear availability windows. In the age of Slack, Teams, and instant messaging, batching is a countercultural practice that signals a mature relationship with technology. The takeaway: don't let the urgent but unimportant nibble your day to death. Batch the little things so you can go big on the big things. And speaking of big things, even with perfect batching, you can't do everything yourself. The next secret is about letting go. If you want to scale your impact, you must learn to delegate. Cruz's research found that successful people delegate almost everything that doesn't require their unique expertise. They don't see delegation as weakness or laziness. They see it as a force multiplier. The billionaire doesn't book his own travel, manage his own calendar, or handle his own accounting. He hires people who are better than him at those tasks, and he focuses his time on the few things that only he can do: strategy, vision, key relationships, and major decisions. Delegation, Cruz explains, has a hidden return on investment. It develops other people. When you delegate a task to an employee or a team member, you are not just offloading work. You are giving them an opportunity to learn, to take responsibility, and to grow. Many managers resist delegation because they believe it's faster to do it myself, or they won't do it as well as I can. Those beliefs are short-sighted. In the short term, it may be faster to do it yourself. In the long term, you become a bottleneck, your team remains underdeveloped, and your own time is consumed by tasks that could be done by others, leaving no space for the high-level work that truly needs your attention. He tells the story of a small business owner who nearly burned out because she was doing everything, answering customer emails, managing the website, doing the bookkeeping. She finally hired a part-time virtual assistant, and initially it was hard. She had to explain processes, review work, and correct mistakes. But within 3 months, the assistant was handling 80% of the routine tasks, and the owner had reclaimed 20 hours a week, which she used to develop a new product line that doubled her revenue. The delegation didn't just save time, it created wealth. A student can apply the delegation principle in group projects. Instead of doing all the work herself to ensure quality, she can delegate sections to teammates, provide clear guidelines, and then review the assembled work. It's a leadership skill in miniature. An employee can delegate parts of a project to junior team members, not as an abdication, but as a mentoring opportunity. A business owner can delegate social media management, bookkeeping, and customer support to freelancers or employees, focusing her energy on business development and innovation. An investor can delegate the administration of accounts and the execution of routine trades to a trusted broker or automated platform, reserving her mental energy for strategic asset allocation. Tomorrow, make a list of all the recurring tasks you did in the past week. Circle the ones that do not require your unique skills, experience, or judgment. Pick one of those tasks and identify a person, a colleague, a freelancer, even a piece of software who could handle it. Take the first step toward offloading that task. It might be a conversation, a job posting, or signing up for an automation tool. A common mistake is to delegate a task without providing clear instructions or context, and then become frustrated when it's not done correctly. Good delegation involves upfront clarity. What needs to be done by when, to what standard, and why it matters. Another mistake is to abdicate rather than delegate, to wash your hands completely and never check in. Periodic review and feedback are essential, especially early on. The limitation is that some people have no one to delegate to, either due to budget constraints or organizational structure. In those cases, delegation might mean automating tasks with technology or negotiating role adjustments with a supervisor. In the gig economy, delegation has never been easier. You can hire a virtual assistant from anywhere in the world for a modest hourly rate. The barrier to delegation is no longer access. It's the psychological willingness to let go. The takeaway: you are not a machine. If a task can be done by someone else, let them do it. Your time is too valuable to spend on work that doesn't require you. And once you've freed up that time, you can start to structure your entire week around your highest priorities. That's where the secret of theme days comes in. Theme days are the practice of dedicating entire days of the week to a particular type of work. Instead of each day being a chaotic mix of meetings, creative work, administrative tasks, and strategic planning, you assign a theme. Cruz found that many successful entrepreneurs do this. For example, Monday might be for internal meetings and team alignment. Tuesday and Wednesday might be for deep, focused work on key projects. Thursday might be for external meetings, networking, and business development. Friday might be for planning, learning, and personal development. This structure provides a rhythm to the week, reduces decision fatigue, and ensures that every critical area of work gets dedicated attention. Theme days work because they align with the natural rhythms of focus and energy. Deep work often requires long, uninterrupted blocks, which are best scheduled on days with minimal meetings. Creative work might be scheduled for days when energy is typically higher. Administrative tasks can be batched on a day when energy is lower. The theme becomes a container that shapes expectations, both your own and those of your team. If a colleague wants to schedule a meeting on a deep work day, you have a framework to push back. I hold Tuesdays and Wednesdays for focused project work. Can we find a time on Monday or Thursday instead? A student might theme her days around subjects. Monday and Wednesday for science courses, Tuesday and Thursday for humanities, Friday for review and projects. This prevents the mental whiplash of switching between radically different subjects multiple times a day. An employee might theme her week around different aspects of her role: Monday for reporting and data analysis, Tuesday for client calls, Wednesday for content creation, Thursday for team development, Friday for strategic planning. A business owner might theme her months: January for planning, February for product development, March for marketing push, and so on, while also having weekly themes. Tomorrow, look at your upcoming week and try to assign a loose theme to each day. It doesn't have to be rigid. If an urgent matter arises, you can adapt, but the theme provides a default structure. See how it feels to spend a whole day largely in one mode of thinking. Many people report a dramatic reduction in stress and an increase in output. A common mistake is to theme days so rigidly that you become inflexible to genuine emergencies. Themes are a guideline, not a straitjacket. Another mistake is to theme days in a way that doesn't match your energy rhythms, scheduling creative work on the day when you consistently feel drained, for example. Pay attention to your own patterns. The limitation is that some roles, particularly those in frontline operations or crisis response, cannot support themed days. The work dictates the day. But even then, identifying themes within your available time, mornings for proactive work, afternoons for reactive, can help. In the world of remote and hybrid work, where the boundaries between different types of work can blur, themed days provide a much-needed structure. They help you reclaim agency over a schedule that might otherwise be driven by the loudest demand. The takeaway: don't let your week happen to you. Design it. Themed days are the architecture of a productive week. But architecture alone isn't enough. You need to fuel the builder. That brings us to the next secret: managing your energy, not just your time. Time management is useless without energy management. You can have the most perfectly blocked schedule and a pristine calendar, but if you're exhausted, you won't execute. Cruz found that ultra-successful people treat their energy as a precious resource that must be cultivated and protected. They understand that their effectiveness at any given moment is a function of their physical, emotional, and mental energy, and they structure their lives to maximize all three. Physical energy comes from the fundamentals: sleep, nutrition, and exercise. The ultra-successful are not typically the ones who brag about sleeping 4 hours a night. Many of them, Cruz discovered, are obsessive about getting 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep because they know that a sleep-deprived brain makes poor decisions, has lower emotional control, and works more slowly. They exercise regularly, not primarily for aesthetics, but because cardiovascular fitness directly correlates with cognitive function and stress resilience. They fuel themselves with quality nutrition, avoiding the sugar crashes and brain fog that come from a poor diet. Emotional energy comes from the quality of relationships, from a sense of purpose, and from managing stress. The ultra-successful tend to invest in positive relationships and limit time with toxic people. They cultivate gratitude, mindfulness, or spiritual practices that replenish their emotional reserves. Mental energy comes from focus. Every distraction, every context switch, every unresolved task drains mental energy. The practices we've already discussed, time blocking, batching, touching it once, are all at their core energy management strategies. They preserve mental fuel for the work that matters. Cruz shares the story of an executive who schedules her most demanding cognitive work for her peak energy window for her 8:00 a.m. to 11:00 a.m. She then takes a deliberate break for exercise and lunch, recharging for the afternoon, which she dedicates to less demanding tasks like meetings and email. She never tries to power through the afternoon slump with caffeine. She respects her body's rhythms and adjusts her expectations accordingly. A student who manages energy, not just time, ensures she gets enough sleep before an exam, rather than pulling an all-nighter that leaves her too groggy to think. She studies in focused sprints with breaks, rather than marathon sessions of diminishing returns. An employee takes a short walk during lunch instead of eating at his desk, returning to the afternoon with renewed clarity. A business owner recognizes that her creativity peaks in the morning, so she schedules all brainstorming and strategic work before noon and leaves the afternoon for operations. An investor practices stress management through meditation or hobbies, ensuring that the emotional volatility of the market doesn't cloud her judgment. Tomorrow, track not just your time but your energy. Every hour, rate your energy level on a scale of 1 to 5. Notice the patterns. When are you naturally high? When do you crash? Then, over the next week, experiment with aligning your most important work with your peak energy windows and your low energy periods with rest or less demanding tasks. A common mistake is to treat energy as something you can just push through with willpower. Willpower is finite and it runs out. Sustainable high performance comes from managing energy wisely, not from overriding its signals. Another mistake is to neglect one dimension of energy. Gym fanatics who ignore emotional renewal, meditation practitioners who neglect their bodies. The limitation is that some people have chronic health conditions, sleep disorders, or demanding caregiving responsibilities that limit their ability to optimize energy. The principle still applies at the margins. Even small improvements in sleep, nutrition, or stress management can yield noticeable returns. In the hustle culture, where burnout is sometimes worn as a badge of honor, energy management is a quiet, sane rebellion. The takeaway: you don't manage time, you manage yourself during that time. And you can't manage yourself without energy. Charge your batteries before you try to drain them. And one of the most effective ways to charge those batteries happens before the workday even begins. It's the morning ritual. Cruce's next secret is that successful people own their mornings. They don't wake up and immediately react to the world's demands. They have a deliberate, consistent morning ritual that sets the tone for the entire day. This ritual usually includes elements of the renewal we just discussed: exercise, meditation, reading, journaling, a healthy breakfast. But the specific activities matter less than the fact of the ritual itself. The morning ritual is a declaration that before you give your time to anyone else, you give it to yourself. It grounds you in your own values, energizes your body and mind, and reinforces the proactive mindset that separates the effective from the reactive. He shares examples: a CEO who starts every day with 30 minutes of quiet reflection and gratitude journaling, an entrepreneur who runs 3 miles every morning, rain or shine, not for the fitness alone, but because it gives her a sense of accomplishment and control before the chaos of the business day begins. A writer who spends the first hour of every morning reading something inspiring before she writes a single word. These rituals are not luxuries. They are non-negotiable investments in the state of mind required to perform at a high level. A student's morning ritual might be waking up 20 minutes earlier than necessary, doing a short stretch, reviewing her MIT for the day, and eating a proper breakfast instead of grabbing a sugary snack on the way out. That small ritual can change the entire tone of her school day. An employee's ritual might include listening to an educational podcast during his commute, then spending 5 minutes at his desk reviewing his calendar and MIT before opening his email. A business owner might begin her day with a brief meditation and a review of her quarterly goals, reconnecting with the big picture before diving into the minutiae. An investor might read the headlines and do a brief mindfulness exercise before making any trading decisions. Tomorrow morning, design a 15-minute ritual for yourself. Pick 2 or 3 small activities that energize you or center you: a brief stretch, a glass of water, a minute of deep breathing, writing down your MIT, reading a page of something inspiring. Do them in the same order at the same time. Protect that time. Notice how you feel entering the day compared to days when you wake up and immediately dive into your phone. A common mistake is to design a ritual that is too ambitious and then abandon it entirely when you can't maintain it. A 2-hour morning routine is not sustainable for most people. Start with 15 minutes. Consistency beats intensity. Another mistake is to copy someone else's ritual without considering your own needs and rhythms. Your ritual should fit your life, not your idol's Instagram. The limitation is that parents of young children, shift workers, and others with unpredictable mornings may not be able to have a consistent, peaceful ritual. In those cases, the ritual might be a micro-ritual, a single minute of breathing, a single positive thought, done whenever a moment of calm appears. In the age of the morning scroll, where many people reach for their phone before their feet hit the floor, a deliberate morning ritual is a radical act of self-possession. The takeaway: win the morning and you win the day. The first hour sets the tone for the next 15, but the rituals, the energy management, the time blocking, all of these are built on a foundation that is surprisingly analog. The next secret might surprise you because it involves ditching your phone for something much simpler: a notebook. Cruz found that many ultra-successful people, including Richard Branson, carry a simple notebook everywhere they go. Not a fancy app, not a complex digital system, just a pen and paper. Why? Because a notebook is instant, it's distraction-free, and it captures ideas, tasks, and observations in a way that a smartphone often fails to do. When you pull out your phone to jot down a note, there's a high probability that you'll see a notification, get distracted, and lose the thread of whatever thought you were trying to capture. A notebook has no notifications. It's a pure capture tool. Beyond capturing ideas, the notebook serves a deeper function. Many successful people use it for daily reflection, for writing down their MIT, for processing their thoughts, for keeping a simple log of what they accomplished. This practice of writing by hand has cognitive benefits that typing doesn't replicate. It slows your thinking, helping you clarify and condense. A notebook is also a record. Unlike a to-do app that gets cleared, a notebook preserves your thinking over time, allowing you to look back and see patterns, progress, and ideas you might have forgotten. He tells the story of an entrepreneur who keeps a notebook on his nightstand. Every evening, he writes down his MIT for the next day, and every morning he reviews it. He also writes down one thing he's grateful for. The notebook is not a journal in the traditional sense. It's a tool for execution and mindset. Another story: a CEO who uses her notebook exclusively for meeting notes, keeping them all in one place rather than scattered across legal pads and apps. When she needs to recall a decision from 6 months ago, she simply flips back. A student can use a notebook to capture lecture notes, questions, and study schedules. The act of writing by hand has been shown to improve retention compared to typing. An employee can keep a notebook for meeting notes and daily priorities, reducing the chaos of scattered sticky notes and emails to himself. A business owner can use a notebook as a capture device for ideas that occur throughout the day, ideas for new products, process improvements, people to hire, and then review them weekly. An investor can keep a trading journal in a notebook, recording the rationale behind each decision and the emotional state at the time, which becomes invaluable for reviewing and improving decision-making over time. Tomorrow, buy a simple notebook if you don't have one. Start carrying it with you. When you have an idea, a task, or a thought you want to remember, write it down by hand instead of reaching for your phone. At the end of the day, review what you've written. You might be surprised at the clarity this simple practice brings. A common mistake is to use the notebook as a disorganized dumping ground that you never review. The notebook works best when paired with a daily review ritual, a few minutes in the evening or morning to process your notes and migrate tasks to your calendar or MIT list. Another mistake is to get a beautiful, expensive notebook and then feel pressure to write only profound things in it. The notebook is a work tool. Let it be messy. The limitation is that a notebook can be lost or damaged, and it's not searchable like a digital document. For some, a hybrid system works best: notebook for initial capture and daily planning, and a digital archive for reference material. In a world of digital complexity, the notebook is a return to simplicity. It's quiet, it's private, and it's yours. The takeaway: the best productivity tool is the one you actually use, and for many of the most successful people in the world, that tool is a humble notebook. And now, having explored these individual secrets, let's tie them together and see how they form a complete system. But first, let's give the book its due criticism. 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management is, by design, a practical, no-nonsense guide. It doesn't pretend to be a work of deep psychological scholarship, and its critics have rightly noted that many of the ideas are not original to Kevin Kruse. The 80-20 rule dates back to Vilfredo Pareto in the 19th century. The eat that frog concept was popularized by Brian Tracy. Time blocking has been championed by Cal Newport and many others. Kruse's contribution is synthesis and packaging, not invention, and some academics dismiss the book as a collection of common-sense advice dressed up as secrets. Others argue that the book's focus on billionaire habits can feel disconnected from the realities of average workers. A minimum wage employee with no control over her schedule, no assistant to delegate to, and no ability to theme her days may find the advice aspirational but not immediately actionable. The book implicitly assumes a level of autonomy that many people do not possess. From a psychological standpoint, the book emphasizes behavioral tactics, but spends less time on the underlying emotional and cognitive patterns that drive procrastination and distraction. Knowing you should eat the frog doesn't address the anxiety or shame that might make the frog feel impossible. For some readers, these secrets may feel like a surface-level fix for a deeper problem. What do experts agree with? The core principles, focus, prioritization, energy management, intentionality, are universally valid and well supported by productivity research. The book's strength is its clarity and motivational power. It's a jolt of practical energy, not a comprehensive theory of the human condition. Many readers find that simply implementing 2 or 3 of the secrets creates a meaningful improvement in their daily effectiveness. A balanced view is that the book is a high-density summary of best practices. It's best used as a toolkit, not a Bible. Pick the secrets that resonate with your life, adapt them to your context, and don't feel guilty about the ones you can't implement. And now, let's see how those secrets apply in the very specific, very distracting world we live in today. If Kruse's billionaires had to navigate the modern attention economy, they would double down on these secrets. The forces arrayed against focused time have only intensified. Social media algorithms are designed to exploit the dopamine loops in your brain. Slack and Teams create an expectation of immediate response. The gig economy and remote work have dissolved the structural boundaries between work and life, making the discipline of time blocking and themed days more critical than ever. The rise of AI introduces a new layer. AI tools can now handle many of the tasks that used to consume hours: drafting emails, summarizing meetings, generating reports. This makes the 1440 principle even more interesting. If AI can save you an hour a day, what will you do with that reclaimed hour? Most people will fill it with more busy work unless they consciously redirect it toward their MIT. The person who uses AI to delegate the low-value 80% and invests the saved time in the high-value 20% will leap ahead. Remote work has democratized the ability to design your own schedule, but it has also democratized distraction. Without an office door to close, you must create your own boundaries. Time blocking and morning rituals are the virtual door. The notebook becomes a way to disconnect from the screen. Saying no becomes a practice of protecting not just your time, but your mental health. The creator economy and side hustles are perfect laboratories for these secrets. A side hustler who identifies her MIT, eats the frog on the most dreaded task, batches content creation, and delegates administrative work to a virtual assistant, is running a small business with the same principles as a billionaire. The scale is different, but the mechanics are identical. Global investing and the 24-hour news cycle make energy management and batching essential for the individual investor. The person who checks markets constantly is the person who panics. The person who batches research and review sessions is the person who acts from analysis, not emotion. In short, the secrets are timeless, but their application must be adapted to a world of constant connection. The principles are the same. The weapons of distraction are merely more sophisticated. And to see how these principles play out in real lives, let's look at 3 people who transformed their relationship with time. Meet Liam, a 26-year-old junior architect. He was talented but perpetually behind on deadlines. staying late at the office, and feeling like he was drowning in minor tasks. He read Crusoe's book and the 1440 principle struck him first. He started thinking about his day in minutes, not hours. Then he began identifying one MIT each day and time blocking it from 7:30 to 9:30 a.m. before the office got noisy. He started saying no to low-priority meetings that interrupted his design time. Within 3 months, his project completion rate soared, and he was leaving the office by 6. His boss noticed the improvement and assigned him to a high-profile project. The lesson: protecting the first hours of the day for your most important creative work can change your career trajectory. Now consider Alina, a 41-year-old middle manager in a healthcare company. Her day was a blur of back-to-back meetings, and her actual managerial work, strategic planning, team development, performance reviews, was getting done in the margins, late at night. She was burning out. She implemented themed days, Mondays for team one-on-ones and operational meetings, Tuesdays and Thursdays blocked for strategic work, Wednesdays for external stakeholder meetings, Fridays for planning and professional development. She communicated the system to her team and her boss, and she started saying no to meeting requests that fell on her deep work days. The first month was tough. She had to push back constantly, but gradually her calendar shifted. She reclaimed over 15 hours a week, and her strategic work became the best part of her job. The lesson: you don't have to accept a fragmented schedule. You can design your week around what matters. Finally, there's Raj, a 35-year-old entrepreneur running a fast-growing e-commerce brand. He was the bottleneck in his own company, approving every design, answering every customer escalation, managing the ad accounts himself. He was working 70-hour weeks and his health was suffering. He read The Secrets on Delegation and the 80-20 rule. He did an 80-20 analysis and realized that 20% of his activities, product vision and key partnership calls, drove 80% of the growth. He hired an operations manager to handle the day-to-day, delegated ad management to a specialized agency, and promoted a customer service lead. He was terrified to let go, but he created clear processes and metrics. Within 6 months, his hours dropped to 45 per week, revenue grew by 30% because he was focused on strategy, and he started a morning ritual of exercise and meditation that restored his health. The lesson: delegation is not losing control, it's gaining leverage. These 3 people are not superheroes. They simply took the secrets and applied them consistently. The question is, how will you apply them? Let's build your action plan. The following steps are designed to be implemented one at a time, starting today. Step 1. Internalize the 1440 principle. Place a reminder where you'll see it each morning. 1440. At the end of each day this week, reflect on where your minutes went. No judgment, just awareness. Why? Because consciousness is the first step to change. The mistake is skipping this because it seems too simple. The outcome is a heightened awareness of your most finite resource. Step 2. Establish your evening MIT ritual. Every night before you go to bed, write down one most important task for the next day. Make it specific and actionable. Why? Because a defined target concentrates your energy. The mistake is picking a task that's either too easy or too vague. The outcome is a clear focus that cuts through morning fog. Step 3. Time block your MIT. Tomorrow, look at your calendar and block at least 60 uninterrupted minutes for your MIT. Treat this block as sacred. Turn off notifications. Close your door. Why? Because what gets scheduled gets done. The mistake is letting the block get pushed aside for something urgent but less important. The outcome is the satisfaction of completing your highest priority work early. Step 4. Eat the frog this week. Identify the one task you've been dreading the most. On one morning this week, do that task first before you do anything else. Why? Because procrastination is an emotional problem and the cure is immediate action. The mistake is expecting the dread to disappear. It won't until you start. The outcome is the immense relief and momentum that follows. Step 5. Apply touch it once to your email. The next time you open your inbox, apply Ohio. Only handle it once. Decide immediately, act, delete, or schedule. Why? Because open loops drain mental energy. The mistake is to try this when you only have 2 minutes. Set aside dedicated processing time. The outcome is an inbox that stops haunting you. Step 6. Do an 80-20 analysis on your work week. List your major activities and estimate the results each one generates. Identify your 20%. Schedule more of it next week. Why? Because not all work is equal. The mistake is assuming everything you do is essential. The outcome is a shift from being busy to being effective. Step 7. Say no to one thing this week that you would normally say yes to out of guilt or obligation. Practice a polite, brief refusal. Why? Because every yes has a hidden cost. The mistake is over-explaining. The outcome is reclaimed time and reduced resentment. Step 8. Batch one type of task. Pick one recurring task, email, social media, expense reports, and designate 2 or 3 specific times this week to handle it in batches. Close it down at all other times. Why? Because batching preserves focus. The mistake is expecting to never check outside the batch. Be gentle with yourself as you build the muscle. The outcome is longer stretches of uninterrupted deep work. Step 9. Design a simple morning ritual. For the next week, commit to a 15-minute sequence each morning before you check your phone or email. It could be water, stretching, writing your MIT, and reading one page of a book. Why? Because how you start the day shapes how you live the day. The mistake is making it too complicated. The outcome is a grounded, proactive start. Step 10. Start carrying a notebook. For the next month, keep a simple notebook for your daily MIT, capture tasks and ideas, and a brief end-of-day reflection. Why? Because analog capture is distraction-free and cognitively clarifying. The mistake is letting it become a disorganized mess. Spend 2 minutes reviewing it each evening. The outcome is a trusted system that keeps your mind clear. These 10 steps are not a one-time fix. They are the beginning of a new practice. Pick 2 or 3 to start with this week. Add more as you build confidence. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. Let's pause and look at the complete tapestry we've woven. Kevin Kruse's 15 Secrets Successful People Know About Time Management is, at its heart, a profound reframing of our relationship with the clock. It begins with a stark, humbling truth. You have 1,440 minutes in a day, and every minute you spend on one thing is a minute you can never spend on another. From that foundation, it builds a layered system. You identify your MIT, the one task that matters most, and you eat the frog by tackling your most dreaded, high-impact work first. You take that task and you don't leave it on a wishful to-do list. You schedule it into your calendar as an unbreakable appointment. You learn the quiet power of a 2-letter word, saying no to almost everything so you can say yes to your priorities. You stop handling tasks over and over, applying the touch-it-once principle, and you leverage the 80-20 rule to focus on the vital few activities that drive the majority of your results. You batch the trivial many tasks so they don't fragment your focus, and you delegate everything that doesn't require your unique genius. You structure your week with themed days to reduce decision fatigue. You manage your energy so you have the fuel to execute, and you anchor each day in a deliberate morning ritual that puts you in control before the world can grab the wheel. Finally, you put it all together with a simple notebook, an analog tool for a digital age, to capture, plan, and reflect. These secrets are not isolated hacks. They are an integrated system. The 1440 principle creates urgency. The MIT and frog eating create focus. Time blocking and saying no create space. Batching, delegating, and themed days create efficiency. Energy management and morning rituals create sustainability. The notebook ties it all together. When they work in concert, you stop being a victim of your schedule and become the architect of your life. Kevin Kruse didn't invent these ideas from scratch, but he did something valuable. He asked the people who have the most freedom and the most impact how they actually use their time, and he reported back with clarity and conciseness. The book is a shortcut to wisdom that might otherwise take decades of trial and error to acquire. If today's exploration has sparked something in you, I encourage you to find the original book. It's a fast read, packed with direct quotes from the billionaires and high achievers Kruse interviewed, and it includes templates and additional resources that a summary can only hint at. A summary is a map. The book is the territory, and walking the territory will embed these secrets more deeply into your daily practice. Let me leave you with this final thought. Time is the only currency that truly matters because it's the only one you can never get back. You can lose money and earn it again. You can lose a relationship and sometimes rebuild it. But a minute spent in mindless distraction, a day spent on someone else's priorities, a year spent on a treadmill that goes nowhere, those are gone forever. The secrets we've discussed today are not about squeezing more work into your day. They're about reclaiming your life from the noise, so that when you look back, you can say that you spent your 1,440 minutes, each day's precious, irreplaceable gift, on the things that truly mattered. The clock is ticking. What will you do with your next 1,440 minutes? The choice, as always, is yours.